Welcome to the Entre Podcast. This is your host, Michael Marra. I'm the CEO of Entre, a new professional network that we built to help you connect with new people and learn from industry experts. On this show, we interview the top CEOs, founders, investors, and creators from all over the world to have meaningful conversations about entrepreneurship and life. I hope you enjoy the show. On this episode, I interview Randy Garn with my co-host David Meltzer in a special interview at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. Randy is a New York Times bestselling author, serial entrepreneur, investor, and business and life strategist. He's currently the Chief Strategic Officer at Arieli Capital. He's an amazing person, a genuine human. He's a connector, builder, mentor, someone that from the first time I met him, really just fell in love with him. He's a great person. We had an amazing, deep conversation, and I hope you enjoyed this episode.
Welcome back to Season 2 of the Entre Podcast. I'm super excited to be here with my co-host, David Meltzer, and our special guest, Randy Garn. We're going to kick things off. I'm a huge fan, obviously, on this show of entrepreneurship and really find out what makes people start on their entrepreneurship journey. So Randy, I'd love to have you tell us how you got really started. What made you really want to dive into that? Was it your family, friends, or is it just yourself?
Or the money.
Or the money.
Show me the money. You know, honestly, for me, it was out of necessity. To be honest with you, it was about the money. I've always been one my entire life that I have always wanted to be self-sufficient. Meaning for me, living a life of freedom, and my dad was a high school football coach. We had a ranch, but he'd always tell me, he's like, Randy, first thing when I went to college, he grabbed my face, put his hands on my head, and he literally just said, Randy, if you don't have your own goals, someone else will use you for theirs. And it really hit me. And so I am one too that, I think if somebody else can do it, I can do it. And so I've always wanted to be self-sufficient. I've always wanted to be able to create with my own two hands and to be an entrepreneur and to be innovative and creative, because I found that's actually what brought the most joy to my heart. So even when I was a young kid, I started a whole bunch of businesses when I was like 12, 13, 14, 15, and it was a blast.
What was the first one?
The first one I actually did a miniature golf course at our ranch. And there was nothing out there. I mean, we're in the middle of Idaho, So I started up a miniature golf course, and we would charge people $5 to play, and then if they lost one of the balls, it was $2. So I made more money on people losing balls than anything else. So it was like a nine course mini golf course just right off the freeway, and it was a blast. But that was one of my first ones. I sold Worms the Fisherman. One of my favorite ones when I was in college, I was making thousands of dollars a month. We could go through the math, but we don't have time. But I actually took out the women's garbage at all of the dorms, and I created a really fun company called Buck that paid my whole way through college.
Nice.
No way.
The dollar per person per door. There was 4 girls per door, and I had 600 doors that were paying. It was some good money.
Yeah.
And every Tuesday and Thursday, I just load my dad's truck up. We'd go throw the trash out, and I got some great.
I was saying, do you Huck Finn it and get all your friends to do the work, and you just collect the cash? Yeah, because collecting is 80% of being an entrepreneur. Just so if you want a piece of advice. So, Randy, one of the things that I admired about you, and maybe even had some jealousy, although I fight jealousy in my career now today, is that not only did you have such a close relationship and still do with your father, but he was a football coach.
Yeah.
I was missing my dad most of the time in my life. The things that he gave me were mostly what not to do, a few pieces of good advice.
Yep.
But as I've gotten to know you, your dad has had quite an influence on your life, not just as a father, but there's been a lot of football coach-esque advice that he's given you, and that's the advice that made me who I am.
Yeah.
And replacing the father I didn't have with the fathers on the field, teaching me to continue to play, to understand how to do my best, learn lessons, and have fun throughout life. And I still utilize those today at 55 years old, lessons from Pop Warner High School and college, from the coaches I had. I know your dad has had a great impact.
Yeah.
He also had given you a piece of advice that I use. It's a life philosophy, one in which I've adapted. I was hoping you could share what I think is one of the most crucial pieces of advice as an entrepreneur that he gave you as far as having the right mindset, heart set, and handset to create abundance, not just for you, but for others?
Yeah, there's a couple things that my dad did teach me, and I was just with him yesterday.
89 years old.
89 years old.
That's crazy.
And going so strong and living every day to the very fullest. I think some of the things that I learned from my dad is to be resilient and to be super, super tough, but loving at the same time. Actually what it means to be a lover and a fighter. And I watched my dad do that because having a heart of a coach, and everybody already still calls me, he was the original Coach Garn, but I'm still Coach Garn. But the thing that I really loved about him was resilience and accountability to myself, but also accountability to a team and what it feels like to win as a team. And I think as business, like with Entre, like you think about it, it's those people that you go to work with every single day that you should have such a powerful culture with and accountability to each other. I don't want friends that just tell me whatever I want to hear. I love friends like you, Dave, that will call me on the carpet on stuff and that will be accountable to me. My dad has always been that way. A really good example is my dad said, hey, we are going to prom. That was my junior year. And he said, be home at 11 o'clock because we got to go feed the cows at 5 a.m. in the morning, and I don't want you tired. But you need to be home at 11. If you're not home at 11, then you don't get to use the truck for prom. I'm like, okay, I'll be home at 11. I remember we're in the hot tub. Me and my friends are in the hot tub. We're having a good time. I asked him, hey, what time? And he's like, dude, he's like, that's 11:30. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, no.
And I live like 12 minutes away. I'm like, oh, no. So I get in the truck. I'm bombing home. I'm like, my dad's going to kill me. Oh, because I loved him, but at the same time, I knew that he was going to follow through. So I sneak in the house. All the lights are off. I'm like, I made it. I get into my bedroom, and I'm like, oh, I'm good, dude. And I get undressed. I get ready to get in my covers. I pull the covers back, and guess who's in there?
Your dad?
My dad. He's sleeping in my bed. And literally, he literally said, Randy, what time is it? And I said, Dad, and I still remember this day. I said, it's 11:42. And he said, what time did you commit to me that you'd be home? And I said, I told you I'd be home at 11. And he said, what did I tell you that if you weren't home? He said that I don't get the car for prom. And this was going to be, I had a beautiful date, like everything. And he said, all right, well, we'll see you in the morning. We knelt down, we said prayers together, and he went to bed. And so he didn't get mad. He didn't get upset. But what do you think happened in the morning? I didn't get the keys. I'm like, Dad. He's like, no, I follow through with my commitments, and I want you to learn to follow through with your commitments. You do what you did in life. So those are the little things that he taught me. It's little things don't mean a lot. Little things mean everything, especially when it comes to your reputation, your trust, like everything in your life comes down to what do they think about you? Do people trust you? What is your brand? What is your name? And so he taught me what it meant to like really live up to the Garn name. And everybody that knows my dad loves him, but they also know that he's tough, that he's loving, and he's kind, and he follows through with everything he says he's going to do.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Accountability, like making sure that your words actually mean what you say.
Yeah.
Do what you say. I think that's extremely important. I know you're very active and involved with high performance coaching.
Yeah.
I'm sure accountability is part of that, how you help CEOs and just, high performers. What else outside of accountability, I guess, would you say are other traits, characteristics that you see people who do like things that they do well that most people don't, and that maybe some people miss or don't really lean into as much? Is there anything other than accountability?
Oh yeah. Probably the most important thing is probably for me, one of the most important things that I've learned is that relationships are your most valuable asset. And I grew up in a really small town, and I actually really came to understand why everybody loved each other in our town, because they knew they were going to see each other and be with each other forever. Like people just didn't move in and out. And like, so we knew that the Johnsons were going to be there. Yeah. I knew that the Ards were going to be there. I knew that the Holmans were going to be there. And so you treated each other with a different mindset. So I think for me, one of the things that everyone should learn is how small the world is, and that reputation and relationships are your most valuable asset. And I think too many times as entrepreneurs and CEOs, we're way too transactional and not transformational. And I know that can sound interesting, but you never know who the treasure map to the treasure is.
Right.
I treat the CEO and the Uber driver the exact same.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if he's the brother of the CEO of Salesforce or Stripe or whatever it may be. So it's like you have to think about that. Ensure that you're not just always transactional, I think is the biggest mistake that young entrepreneurs make.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, one person can change your whole life.
Yeah.
It's literally one person.
Yep.
It can set everything completely down a whole nother trajectory. That's why I love events and building community, as I know you do as well.
Yeah, and I was going to bring up another thing I know about you that we share is the importance of simple gratitude.
Yeah.
Of being able to find the light, the love, and the lessons, of living not only with gratitude of the past for everything that has happened with us, for us, and through us, but more importantly, having this optimist attitude that you and I share. It's a frequency, a vibration that most people, when they meet you, will say, you remind me, your energy reminds me of, and vice versa all the time.
All the time.
How important is, as being an entrepreneur, not life, but literally to be a successful entrepreneur, how important is simple gratitude?
I mean, gratitude is the lubricant to happiness and joy. And so being an entrepreneur is freaking a battle, and it is war. And we've been in it, and you get your hands on the meatloaf and you're in the trenches and you're like literally, every day is war. So if you can't get your head straight, you also have to really learn that gratitude, being grateful for your people, being grateful for the opportunity, being grateful that we have freedom. Like, look at us. We're at SoFi Stadium doing a podcast with two amazing men. And I'm just so grateful that we were able to fly out here on my buddy's plane and bring some amazing people with us. And so I think sometimes we forget how important it is to just bring joy and gratitude and being gracious to those that we work, being grateful for the opportunities that we have, being grateful for every morning that I get to wake up and I actually am breathing, and that I have life and that I can create. And I have a beautiful wife and 6 kids, and I try to do that every night. I will write in my journal, what miracles did I see in my life, and how did I see the hand of God in my life today? And I have a whole journal, just my gratitude journal, that I've kept for 15 years. And that's been one of the most important things to keep perspective in my life.
Perspective is very important.
Yeah.
I think that gratitude, that's one of the first things I learned from Dave. Thank you.
Yeah.
Before you go to bed, when you wake up.
Yep.
Being in that mindset of gratitude and being thankful, huge. How you mentioned before the podcast started that you invest in people. I know you've invested in a lot of companies, people, businesses. I want you to touch on that a little bit. Why a lot of investors, I've dealt with a lot of different investors. Some are more about people, some are more numbers oriented. Yeah. I want you to touch on why the people side of things. Well,
for me, again, it comes down to, I've learned this from Dave, I've learned this from others, is that my business partners are my best friends. And a lot of people, I will always say, don't work with your friends and your family. I totally disagree with that. I only work with the people that are the most awesome, and I'm going to spend my life with them. So outside of my family and my beautiful kids, and my business partners are my best friends. And so if I'm investing in something, I have to look that CEO in the eye, and I have to be like, and I always ask this question, if this doesn't work, what are you going to do? And if they tell me, if this doesn't work, I'm going to go work at my dad's firm, or I'm going to go do this, then I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm like, if they say nothing else, this is all I want to do, this is all I'm going to do, and I can trust them that they have the competency and the right, countenance, and they have the right, and I trust them because I trust my mom, but I'm not going to have her run a company, right?
Me neither.
No, for real. I love my mom. She's the most beautiful soul. But does that person that I'm investing in, do they have the chutzpah? Do they have the guts? Do they have the resilience? Do they have the gratitude? Are they somebody I want to spend time with?
Right.
Can I trust them with my money for my family?
Right.
And so for me, it's like the most important part is who is the jockey, who is running the ship, and do they have the chutzpah to get it done?
Yeah, I see the common denominator from all the people that we know, the interviews that we get to do, including the ones we get to do together. The number one common denominator of the billionaires, millionaires, entrepreneurs, celebrities, athletes, entertainers, what I call the spirit of excellence, is a desire that they must be what they can be. And that's what truly it takes. If you don't have that desire, then you will go back to working at the law firm or working for your dad or, you know, getting a 9-to-5 position that pays a hefty salary because you have those skills, knowledge in order to effectuate the security and stability. But if you don't have that desire, now we have to understand failure, especially as entrepreneurs. And people look at you, they may even look at me and think that we don't get kicked in the face, let alone every day get kicked in the face. And that at this point in our career, there's, you know, no more failures. There's just levels of success. And I'd love to understand still today, number one, do you still experience failure? And two, how have you learned to deal or your perspective on the failures that you still have today, if you do have those?
Dave, honestly, like the older I get, the more important I know that it is that we fail. Honestly, when I was younger, I did not think that. I was like, dude, I'm going to win at everything.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the best that I can at everything. But I know that if I'm pushing as hard as I can, I'm going to have some failures. And a really, really awesome guy that I sit on an advisory board with that is amazing, like legit, like a great mentor to me. I made some mistakes or some things happen or it didn't come together just as it wanted. And I thought they were going to be so upset. I thought they were going to be so angry. And they're just like, good, I'm glad that happened because now we can continue to learn from that and we know which direction we want to go. So you got to shorten that failure gap. But I do know that the harder I try to climb, then you start to realize how hard it was for everybody to get where they're at. And the more times we actually fail, but learn from it and keep gratitude in our head and never lose that fire in your belly and the little candles dancing in your eyes and be like, dude, I screwed up, and own it and be like, yeah, I screwed up. I didn't pay attention to that. I missed that little thing in the contract and it did cost us this, but I'm never going to let it happen again. And I love the story from Thomas Edison, his young apprentice, when he was carrying the first light bulb that he created or whatever, fell down the stairs, broke that light bulb. What did Thomas Edison do? Forgave him and let him do it again. And so when we're mentoring people now, when we're coaching people and working with people, I love to push them and help them through failure because I know that I have a lot, but it actually has made me the strength, gave me the courage that I need to continue to know that failure is actually freaking awesome. And if I'm not failing, I'm not pushing it as hard as I can.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've dealt with it so much.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's new things that come up almost every week where there's failures. I just look at them as like it's a little loss. Like it's just like a football team, you know, losing one game. It's like you didn't lose the whole season.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you can still win the win the division, win the
still
Super Bowl,
Yeah.
everything, right? So
Yeah,
that's
there's
kind
only
of
been one team to win the Super Bowl that hadn't lost. Still today.
Still today.
Only one team.
Only one team.
And there was a short season.
It was-
14 games.
Was that the Dolphins?
Dolphins.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dolphins.
1972.
Yeah.
So I tell people all the time, right? In fact, you know, sports is a great analogy to being an entrepreneur. And my son started playing golf 3 months ago. And I don't know much about golf. I've just played for a long time. I never could afford a lesson. And when I could afford a lesson, I couldn't afford the time to take a lesson.
Yeah.
So everything I do on a golf course is hand-eye coordination, not what you want to watch technique-wise. So when I play golf with my son, he's always asking for technique. And I don't have any technique advice other than when you putt, only putt for distance. Don't worry about aiming. Naturally, your believe it or not, your senses will aim a ball correctly. It's the only piece of advice that I can give.
Yeah.
But what I can teach him is mindset.
Yep.
And I love getting reacquainted into golf. I only will play with my son. I love the fact that every time I'm playing, I'm thinking to myself two things. Last time we played, I said, all I want to know is how long does it take for you to get back to center? Because when you hit a bad shot, you're going to be frustrated, pissed, sad, just like I was when I was your age and every other kid. But I just want to, I don't care what your score is, I'm evaluating how long it takes. And then two, to be able every time to tell them one shot. Every shot's its own game.
Yep.
Every hole's its own game. Every round is its own game. And I believe that to be in life and in entrepreneurship, right? Every transaction is one.
Yep.
Every day is one. Every business is one. And as we learn from it, we're only going to have better seasons coming up, a lot easier than golf, and especially to win the Super Bowl and be undefeated, almost an impossibility.
For sure. Yeah, I played golf in high school, and it's like you have to erase the last shot because the next one can make up for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like if you hit the next shot well, it literally changes everything.
Like in Bagger Vance, right? The difference between
Yeah.
Bobby Jones and Gene Sarazen, right? He was just a player like Lee Elder. The guy was a player. Like he would purposely miss the green so he could make more money with the third shot, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
Interesting.
Yeah.
For you, what's your superpower, Randy? You know, everyone has a certain level of skills and knowledge. You obviously have the desire, not only for yourself, but to plant seeds under trees that you may someday not even sit under. But if I asked you what your superpower as far as entrepreneurship goes, what do you think that power is that makes you so special?
You know, I think it's actually it's a combination. It's not just one thing. I think when God made me, he literally put a little extra drop of joy in my heart. Because I do love
Me
people.
too, and he took off 6 inches of height for it.
I know.
It's not a fair trade.
I mean, what
Hey,
happened
we're all in the same boat.
I mean, forget about it.
So it's all
I mean,
guys.
I tried to get in the NBA. I got cut, you know.
You could have been the commissioner still.
Yeah. No, I think for me, I've got a really, I was built, and I've also learned a lot, and I've studied a lot, is human behavior, and knowing when I'm around good people, and sensing it. I have invested time and energy on people that I knew wasn't right, but we were going to make a good amount of money together.
Amen.
And it never ends up well.
No.
So I always really work with people that I love, like, and respect. And I always have a formula that's P over the E squared, where I put people's principles and people over self-economic interests and their ego. So I think that I want to now mitigate any of that by just working with people that are amazing humans in every way, competent, trustworthy, resilient, people that I look up to. And so I think I can spot that out really well. I think that's actually a really big superpower of mine. And then the other thing is I work super hard. There's nothing in this world that can take away from effort and productivity. And I am not afraid to work. I'm not afraid to do anything. And so I think those two things, I love people, but I love the effort.
Is there any, getting back to spotting the people that you either want to do business with or don't want to do, is there anything that you've noticed that they do or say that you're like, oh, I'm definitely not working with this person, or, oh, I'm definitely am working with this person?
You know, it's when we sold our first company, a mentor of mine said, hey, make a list of 25 people that you want to get to know. And I made that list. And for the next 6 months, I went and met them. I actually did stuff for them. I found out what interests them. I found out what college they went to. I found out, do they have kids? I found out, you know, what's charity do they invest in? I did stuff for them. I went out and I figured out how to serve them. I said, I want to get to know these 25 people that I love. I want to be around. I found out that 7 of those 20 people were not real.
Wow.
This is actually a great exercise.
That is beautiful.
Because, I mean, exactly what you're asking. I'm like, I love these people, but those 7 people, I was like, dude, run. And don't just run away, because they weren't true to who they said they were. And so I think for me, it's like, do they do what they say they're going to do, even on the little things? Hey, I'll call you back at 10. They don't. I mean, I'm just like, dude, it's the little things. I actually like to either take them fly fishing or go somewhere with them. And if I wouldn't enjoy spending time with them, then I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to put my energy towards that, because I have done that in the past. But for me right now, I have my 5 most important people in my cell phone, and I actually have my 15 most important people, and then I have my 25. So it's like, who are the top 100 people that you're going to do life and business with?
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm focused on now, as I've gotten a little more seasoned, and I've been through some stuff. And now I can help mentor and coach people. I think for me, it's like how it's so important. And I know we talk about it all the time, but are you spending time on your people strategy? Because I spend a lot of time on my business strategy and economic business, but I will help CEOs and people spend time on who are you spending time with. Not enough people do that. We talk about it, but not enough CEOs and leaders will spend strategy on their human strategy.
That's why Randy's on my top 25 list, and we got millions to choose from, whether it's a bleeding and feeding chain or a relativity spectrum in which to choose who you're going to spend time with and why. I think it's really important to have those lists. And just like there's a Hall of Fame in the pro football arena, there's a Hall of Fame in the relativity of my life. And Randy Garn's one of those guys, which is why I was so excited to bring him on the show, introduce him to the double M over here. You know, I have an affinity. All my kids are double M. So when I met Michael, he was just graduating and building a community. And now just to see him makes me an incredible, proud papa over here of another M&M. Michael Marra and Randy Garn, I want to thank both of you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Randy, so much for coming on. Dave, as always, this was great. I definitely, we need to talk more because there's so much more that I want to go through with you. But this was awesome. We're here in beautiful Los Angeles, SoFi Stadium. Thanks for coming on. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
I love it. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Right on.